Hey,
Hello.
B fam. Welcome to another episode of Enjoying Your Blended Family Stepdaughter Chronicles, where I have had Ryleigh, my beautiful, amazing stepdaughter, on kind of just sharing life as a stepdaughter from her perspective. She's now 25 years old. She's been in the step family game for almost 16 years now. We've had some great episodes up to this point. If you are watching live on the YouTubes, please let us know in the comments that you can see us because it's being weird today and it's not letting us see the screen, which is fine because we don't look at the screen anyways. But just to be sure.
Well, no, it's probably actually for me because I've been looking at the screen this whole time, and so now that I'm not able to look at the screen, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be looking at this camera we
The
have.
webcam. So so if you are watching on the live, go ahead and put in the comments that you can see us. If not, we just did a trial, closed it out and everything, and there was video. So we're gonna go with this with the hopes that all is well.
Yes.
And you want to stay tuned mostly for your female ladies here today. If you're the mother or you're the daughter, you're the stepmother or the stepdaughter, but even you guys could probably gain some wisdom from knowing what's going on in your wife's head or what's going on in your daughter or stepdaughter's head, because today we're talking about periods.
Oh, lovely.
Did that just give you Jess vibes?
No, but did you?
I
Oh,
was trying
sorry.
so hard. We love New Girl and we love Jessica Day, and they call it Mimsies on New Girl.
Yeah.
And so we're going to just kind of shed some light on how our menstrual cycles affect our mood and how our moods affect our relationships. And I think our moods have a huge effect on mother-daughter relationships specifically, probably because we are more emotional and we do like to please people. And when we're in a mood, we lash out more than we probably should. And when we're on the receiving end, it can be painful, right?
Yeah. I feel like that's just life
Oh, everything in general. You can't blame it on the period.
and everything. Well, I mean, I don't know, but we're gonna talk about it.
We're going to talk about it. Yeah, we're going to talk about it here in just a minute. So stick around with us. But before we get into all of that, I just want to remind you guys that we have created something called the Step Family Jumpstart, and it is something that is completely free and available to you. It will be in the show notes after this live. It's in the show notes of the podcast for you guys that are listening on the podcast. And all it is a way for you to connect with other family members, especially when you do have things like periods and menstrual cycles and PMS, all of that stuff that's affecting those relationships. You need to do things very intentionally to connect and have fun together. And so this jumpstart helps you list out all the things that you enjoy doing, or maybe some things that you would like to try to do. Your stepchild, your spouse, they fill it out as well. They list, you can guide them as if they are younger or whatever, asking them the right questions on things that they love to do. Then you look at your list all together. You find things that you have in common or things that you want to try together. The ones that have like across the board, it shows like, oh, we all love doing this thing. Go do that as a family. If you find there are things that only you and one other person in your family, that's your way in. That's your like golden nugget, your magic Willy Wonka ticket. Do more of that and watch those relationships begin to build and bond. And just a slight like off track moment that happened to us this weekend that I thought this is one of those moments where laughter creates these core memories. And we went out to eat after a concert. Those of us that enjoy country music, we went to go see like a really small, like intimate type relationship with John Michael Montgomery, an old country star from like the 90s, early 2000s. And then afterwards, we went out to eat as like me, Ryleigh, Randall, our foster daughter, Susan, my mother-in-law, and my brother-in-law. And we were all just laughing, joking, telling stories, all this kind of stuff, talking about the concert. And then all of a sudden, the waitress brings out a cake and tells Randall happy birthday. And his birthday's in October. Whoops. In October, it completely threw us off. It threw him off, but he thanked her for it. And then we all tried to play it off. And it turned out that Susan had told the waitress that it was his birthday. And so we all laughed so hard. We sang him happy birthday, ate some of the cake, and just had a good old time. We just kept on laughing at it for even like way past the time that it had taken place.
Yeah.
So those are just one of those things when you are able to create more moments of joy and laughter like that, your blended family is going to become closer. When we experience life events, hard and fun, it begins to draw us closer together. So the Step Family Jump Starter is just something to help you guys do that. So now, are you ready to get into this episode?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Are you at all feeling awkward about talking about a period to people on the interwebs?
Maybe a little bit, but I feel like it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. So I feel like it's pretty normal.
It needs to be talked about more.
Yeah.
When I did an interview with Ryleigh, which is my biological daughter, which she just turned 21. I think we did the interview when she was 19. And we were talking about just her and I relationship. And we got on the topic of birth control and mood swings and periods, but it was just a small section in there. So I've always wanted to go deeper on that because I do think that it does cause, I mean, it is what it is with that. Like as females, we have periods sometimes as early as, kids are starting in like 4th and 5th grade.
That is insane.
It really is. I didn't start my period till I was in 8th grade, and I was considered a late bloomer. How about you?
How old are you when you're in 8th grade?
In 8th grade, you're like 12, 13?
Yeah, I think I was 12, right?
Yeah, it was before you left. So yeah, before high school.
Yeah, I think I was 12.
You could have maybe even been 7th grade. Were we at kids camp or where were we at?
Yeah, things always happen to me in the most inconvenient times. I remember like growing up when I would always lose my teeth like when we were out and about, like at the rodeo or at the zoo, or like something that's so inconvenient, at the time. And that's what happened with Mother Nature. She decided to show herself when I was at
It was your
church camp.
First winter retreat with the youth.
Yeah, with the youth. And then boom, here's your, menstrual cycle. That's weird. Anyways, and I had absolutely no idea what it was because we didn't really talk about things like that. I was not really prepared. And I just remember
and she was the first in the family, like as far as the kids were concerned. So we hadn't really tackled this yet.
Yeah.
And you learn about it in school, like in a video, right? Like just around the corner.
Oh, yeah, but that does not prepare you. You're talking with your friends during that video. You're wiggling around, playing with the carpet, all this kind of stuff. You're not paying attention.
And in 4th grade, and then this happens like, a few years later, or maybe sometimes it does happen then. And I remember the reason why I think this topic is so important to talk about when it comes to stepmom, stepdaughter relationship, because there's already so much in the mix that's causing the tension between the two of you. And this adds a whole nother layer on it, especially when you're on defense constantly about your relationship. And I remember her being at the winter retreat. I remember her getting up and going to the bathroom all the time. And I'm like sitting there as one of the leaders, like, come on. Like, I think this was like one of my first times to be a leader, really, when we started helping in the youth. Pretty much you became a 7th grader, you were joining the youth group, and we decided, okay, this is where we want to start serving, because from your time frame all the way to little Ryleigh's time frame, it was going to be like a 7-year stretch. And we're like, okay, we want to commit somewhere that we are going to be involved in the area that y'all are involved in. And so I'm sitting there eyeing you like she's not even paying attention. She just keeps getting up. I remember like those were the thoughts going through my head.
I don't even remember that.
No, well, I probably didn't tell you.
I was probably just trying to survive.
I wouldn't have told you all these evil thoughts going through my head.
Oh.
But then I remember like when you were saying like you felt bad or you felt queasy. And then I don't even remember. Do you remember how you told me that you started your period?
I don't even know. I just remember being in the bathroom, and that's when I think, because we were on our way back from camp that day. It was the same day we were leaving. And so I was in the bathroom, and I just remember being like, I don't think this is normal or something. Like, I was like, am I supposed to be bleeding or something? And then,
like, did I cut myself somehow at that whatever we did yesterday?
Yeah, something like that. And then I think you caught on and you were like, oh. And so I was so embarrassed because you asked like one of the youth, like, oh, do y'all have a pad or something? And I was so embarrassed, and I was like, that son of a gun, like, totally asked one of my peers for a pad. Like, how dare her? She's so evil. But really, you were just trying to look out for a girl, you know?
Yeah, and I don't think that maybe there is a right, nice way to do this, because I know my first time, my parents were in the process of a divorce. Why does this have to happen? You know, like, especially in such turmoil kind of times. And I had chose to live with my dad because my mom, the choices that she was making, I didn't agree with, even as a 8th grade child. So I was living with my dad. I started my period, and I'm not like, at this point, I don't have like a great relationship with my mom or my dad. I don't have like a really close relationship with them. My grandma was the one that I had a closer relationship with. And I don't know why I didn't call my grandma, but for this, I just remember in my 8th grade brain, my teenage brain, thinking, okay, I'm going to call my mom and I'm going to ask her to go get me some and bring them to me. And so I call her, I reach out to her, not my dad, and then he or she ends up calling my dad. My dad goes down to the corner store, gets me some pads, and brings them to me. And I just remember feeling like my mom just betrayed me so much. And I know I've shared this story like in things that we've talked about in the past, but for anybody that hasn't listened to every single podcast, but if you have, thank you. But if you haven't, just that story of like, when you feel betrayed, like, this is a place that your mother should be stepping in. And as a young lady who doesn't have her biological mom with her at the time, and then you're reaching out to me, okay, I need your help in this area. And then I'm going about, I'm trying to help, but
Yeah.
it still makes you feel like you're kind of betrayed.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there still was a stigma, I guess, maybe, because I felt like I craved to have my mom there, you know? And so it's just like embarrassing almost for me to even tell you about it, because we weren't close enough like that. And that is like such a personal thing that's happening to you as a girl. Like, you don't even understand what's going on. You feel betrayed by your own body. And so you're like, what the heck is happening? And I just remember calling my mom after we got home and just crying. Like, I just couldn't even get words together. I was just like bawling my eyeballs out because I didn't understand what was happening to me. And that day was so traumatic.
And I bet your mom was like, she would have done all the right things.
Oh, well,
Yeah. In our minds, we do build that up. Like,
yeah,
that our mom would have handled it right. Whoever wasn't the one that handled it right? The other person that they would have handled it right. They should have done this, could have done this. And I know, like, we were riding home from the winter retreat. So it's not like we could have like these open conversations and all that kind of stuff. And I know with little Ryleigh, I made her like a little care package. Like, hey, your period's going to start. Here's this. And even that is weird and awkward and like, what? No, don't talk about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just keep it in your backpack just in case. You never know when it's going to happen.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So, yeah, well, you live and you learn after the first child, right? So, yay for the first child that gets to have the trial runs.
The experiences, yeah.
So now let's fast forward into some of the emotional stuff that comes along with it. And we'll start from the stepdaughter perspective of the cycle the Mimsies. And, you know, it comes every freaking month.
Yeah.
And I know, like, this is my opinion. You get one good week.
Yeah, that's actually accurate. You get one good week out of the month. The rest of the month, you're absolutely nutty. Like,
there's like the week before that you don't even realize, okay, you're just emotional.
yeah.
Like the world is attacking one thing after another. You begin to spiral down mentally into a dark hole. And then there's the week that your period comes and you're like,
Clear skies.
oh,
That's
well,
the good week. No, I'm just kidding.
no, not yet, not yet. Then the period comes and you're like, oh, I was just fixing to start my period. But then you're dealing with the cramps and the bleeding and the yucky and all of that comes along with it.
Yeah.
And then the next week, it's like your brain is just on this, like, I don't know, just trying to figure out life. And then I feel like then the next week you're good.
Oh,
Is that-
okay. I feel like I had a different
Oh,
experience.
what's yours?
I feel like it would be like a week, maybe sometimes 2 weeks before I would start my period. I would be all funky, weird, super depressed, like literally about to just end it all. And then I would start my period, and yeah, the first couple days suck, right? Because of the cramps. But then afterwards, I'm like, oh wow, this is so great. I feel like dressing up. I feel like going out, like I feel energized and whatever. And then the week after, I'm like, okay, like still on a high. And then that next week after, it's just the
Just cycles.
same thing over again. Same thing back over again. So I guess you get like a good week and a half of clear skies.
Clear skies. Yeah, and I guess in my head too, like it's like I feel like one week it's like mad and like rage, and one of the weeks is like sadness and depression, like in the spiral. At least that's how I was. And see, I turned, I had my period, like 14, we said 13, 14. And then I got on birth control at 16. And so I was on birth control all the way till I was in my mid 30s. And I don't really know like what was my normal like menstrual cycle, period, hormones, or what was birth control hormones that were causing the things that I was experiencing. But I know, like, I'm pretty like laid back and chill when it comes to how the house functions on a normal, like on my good week or two. But then on period week, all of a sudden, those things that I let slide or that don't bother me all the time, now all of a sudden, like, you didn't help with dishes. You never help with dishes. You never do anything. Like everything becomes all these like all or nothing kind of statements with the kids, and your room's a disaster. And, before I'm just letting them just have messy rooms. And then all of a sudden on this week, I turn into like evil.
So that's the week that you're bagging up all the toys and throwing
That's
that
the
in.
week I'm bagging up all the toys.
Oh.
See, and y'all don't know these things because y'all are just younger, just going through it. You're like, what's happened?
We were riding the roller coaster.
You're riding the roller coaster. And so I would go in their room, like, clean up your room. And then, of course, like their ADHD and stuff. I say they being like Devin and Ryleigh. I did this more to them than I did to you, right? Did I ever bag up your toys? And
I don't think I had toys. I don't know.
You did. But I think like when I came into the picture, I organized your room. I got you like organizers.
Oh,
and I went in and I like, because before you just had like tubs with like toys just piled up. And then I went in there and like put everything like so that you had like a place for everything. And then I feel like you just kept it like that afterwards. And I came in and like the medicine cabinet and I got all the organizers and I put all the things where they go. And then you just left it like that. But Devin and Ryleigh, no organizing system could ever keep them organized. And so they would be just stuff shoved in every nook and cranny. You couldn't walk on the floor. And they were sharing a room because it was better for our blended family for them to share a room than for
because I was a brat.
this one to have to share a room with somebody. And so it was just disastrous. We had, twin beds and we were in an 1,100 square foot house. So they would get a mess and I would just come in and I would start telling them, clean up, clean up, clean up. And then eventually I would take all of their crap that wasn't where it belonged and I'd throw it in the middle of the room. And then I would just be like, put it all back where it goes. And then I would come and check on them and they're like playing with the stuff and not, or Devin would invent cleaning things. Like he would create this whole contraption to try to pick up and lift and put the things where they need to go. And Ryleigh would just get distracted and start playing. And so then when they didn't clean, I would bag up all of their crap and I would put it in the attic or put it in the garage or try to make them earn it back. And yeah, those were the weeks
Okay.
that I was on my period. And then the next week, I would realize I was on my period. And then I would be remorseful. But we were just talking about this the other day, which now looking back was probably my mom's periods. My mom would go into rages like that when I was younger. And then she would turn around and be remorseful and be like, let's go to the mall. Let's go shopping. Let's do something. And she would like flip this switch on us. And I remember growing up thinking, I'll never be like that. And so we were just having this conversation the other day, like that I kind of went the opposite. And instead of being able to admit that I made a mistake, I would just stay strong to it. Okay, well, if you want this stuff back or if you want to not be grounded for 6 months, you need to do this, 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 and this. And so I would just throw out all of these things that were unrealistic consequences and way harsher than they need to be. And it turned out it was just period week. And now I've set the mood for the family. Is it making sense now to you?
I mean, hey, we all go with I did that too. I did my time for a long time too, so I get it.
Yeah, so we'll talk about like the reverse of that. Well, I guess let's stick on that for a minute. Like being a kid in the midst of that, did you witness those roller coasters and like what was going through your head, or do you have a particular story in mind or anything?
I mean, as a kid, I just probably thought you were crazy. I don't know. I think that was probably my hot take of that situation. Like, woo, this girl's a roller coaster.
I feel for a lot of it you didn't get to see. You didn't get to see like the huge effect, except every once in a while, like if there was a holiday that you weren't, like a long holiday you were at your mom's or whatever. Because the most part, Devin and Ryleigh, I saved it for them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my kids got the brunt of it. And I tried to mask that. I masked it from Randall. He's never seen me. I mean, I could say maybe 2 or 3 times, if that he's seen me in one of those fits. Like I knew enough not to do it in front of him, but it's like it had to be unleashed. It's like that movie with the red panda or something. Have y'all seen it? It's like about periods and emotions and mothers and daughters, and it's very, very realistic, but it's a panda.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting movie.
So yeah, I don't think you got to see it as much as they did, but you did get to see some.
Yeah, I definitely didn't get to see the full extent, I think. I understand how it went though, because that day when I was here and Ryleigh and Devin were fighting and they were like screaming at each other and like throwing things, and I was like, wow. My whole entire world was
I here?
shattered. No, I don't know where you were at. Maybe
Were they more grown?
Yeah, they were definitely full grown. We were all living here at that time.
Oh, okay.
And I remember like Devin came into my room afterwards as Ryleigh left. She like ran away or something. And he came into my room and just like bawled, like just started crying so hard. And I was just like, I wanted to cry too, because I was like, what the heck just happened? I think I just got out the shower or something. I was like getting ready for the day, and then all of a sudden this like domestic violence situation is like happening in the house. And I'm like, what in the world? And so yeah, it was just, I was like, oh man, like this is their normal, like it just made me realize like this is not okay how they speak to each other like that and how things just get so escalated. Um, but
Yeah, and they're biological siblings. And I think as women, we don't talk about this enough. Like, because now, like, as I'm speaking to you and I'm thinking about like how I was saying with my mom and the things that she would do, like, I don't think we can use our period as an excuse, but I do think if we had more open conversations, we would be more empathetic or like kind, gentle towards each other. But I don't know if like when you're younger and you haven't experienced the mood swings, then I guess you don't know. And so like I was a child, I didn't know. I just saw her emotions like going up and down. But whereas now, like having gone through that myself, it's like, oh, okay, maybe that's what was happening. And I'm very fortunate that I went through menopause at 35. And so I haven't had a period in over 5 years. I'm 42 now. So 7 years, I haven't experienced this. So even just that far removed from it, I forget what it's like to not be able to get yourself out of the spiral. And that's kind of something I wanted to talk about today, as far as like you're still in the middle of it.
mm,
You've experienced those emotional roller coasters as a child. Do you feel like it has progressed and got worse as time has gone on?
well, I think you definitely know the answer to this, but yeah, it definitely has. It. I I struggled a lot with that, which um it just, yeah, it just kept getting worse and worse each time. And then what started as like maybe like a little bit of like an anxiety kind of feeling in my tummy, just over the years progressed into like this extreme suicidal depression, and like where I was just having suicidal ideations all the time, and couldn't just became completely numb to anything and everyone, and was just trying to get through the day. And it took me forever, which you caught on to this a lot quicker than I did. But it's a sensitive subject. It's very sensitive because you don't if you're addressing someone who is about to be on their period, you don't tell them, like, because at least for me, I was like, how dare you dismiss my feelings, like blaming
Mhm.
it on my period and on my hormones. How dare you do that when I'm literally thinking of dying all the time, like it would be like so deep and so heavy for me that I would be like, how dare you just think it's just like little, whatever. But then I came across this thing called PMDD, which checked all the boxes for the things that I was experiencing, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And it's basically where that happens, like before your period, you get super depressed and super just emotional to the point to where your brain can't even process things fully. Like you're not able to make any sense out of anything. Everything is so dark and heavy, and um it just really affects your mood like 12-fold, and this is where I had gotten. And it happened, and I started to realize that it was before my period. Like each time they finally got me to understand that was the correlation, because I just wasn't right. And it wasn't until like I literally almost tried to take my life that I started seeking help in that area, because it had just gotten so things had gotten so dark and heavy in my brain that I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to function with that mentality anymore. It was so
Yeah.
dark and lonely and depressing. And um it was one of those to where you could be in a room full of people but still feel like you were an outcast, or still feel like you were just non-existent, invisible, almost detached from everything. And so I
Can I interrupt real quick?
Okay, yeah.
Well, just thinking on that, because a lot, like before you moved, this was all taking place like when she was living in another state last year. And so it was really hard to not be able to like be there and see it on a regular basis. So all we knew was really from our conversations that we had. And we would talk often, but not every single day or whatever. And before that, though, you know, our life being in a step family, we have just this revolving door, this constant change that's taking place. And so she would get in these dark places, and you could tell she was detaching. You would tell that she wanted to hang out in her room more, or even sometimes even like leave the house more and just go be with like around other friends. And it's like, if we were doing a family holiday celebration, it's like, why can't she just be happy? Like, why can't she just enjoy this? Like, why does every time we're having a family function, she has to get into her head and do all this stuff? And it's like the door is revolving so much though that you're not able to understand, like, okay, is this because she just got back from her mom's? Is this because she's fixing to go to her mom's? Is this because she's missing her brother? Is this because her mom had a conversation with her? Is this because I did something that, it's like you never know if like all of these emotions or are something that caused it, or if it's something just so internal in her that you can't stop, because the depression would get really, really deep. And she was in counseling, trying to figure this stuff out. But it's like once you get in that mindset, you just keep detaching more and more. And as mom slash stepmom, I know like there was times like trying to like coax her to come eat dinner with us, do this. And it's like, if you would just stop withdrawing and put yourself, we know the right answer is to be around people or to go outdoors more, get some sunlight. Like if you look up just a quick Google search of how to get yourself out of depression, you start to see these things that you can do. You need to make sure that you're getting enough sleep and that you're getting enough, sunlight, and you're eating the right foods and you're
Like a
drinking enough
plant.
water. Yeah. Like the things that your body naturally needs, and to not give in to the antisocialness that comes. And if you're on the outside, though, trying to tell somebody that's experiencing that, they don't want to hear it, right?
Yeah, it's almost like you can't hear it. It's like when you watch like the Charlie Brown or something, and the teacher's like, want, 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 want. It's literally like that. Like, and I wrote a song about like the entire experience of how it feels to have depression and how it feels to go that deep. And one of the lyrics is like, they're right in front of me, but I don't hear anything. Like, and that's just so real. Like, they can be talking to you. People can be talking to you like, hey man, today's such a good day. The weather's beautiful outside. Let's go do this. Like, you should be happy, like this is a great, you woke up today. And it's just all like want, 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 want. Like, it just feels like you're underwater.
I do want you prepare yourself, because I want you to sing that song at the end.
Oh God. Okay.
We didn't like last time when she was on and I had her sing the song that she had wrote called Cinderella, about being in our blended family and her feelings towards me and her feelings as a stepdaughter and all of that. Like, we talked about it ahead of time. Hey, will you go on? But now I was just thinking like, oh man, I should have prepared her to sing that song. And then you brought it up. So I was like, I'm going to take that as a sign for you to sing us at the end. But before we wrap up this episode, I want to make, for one, I want to share the story of last spring, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then I want to talk about some personal solutions, things that you're doing that she had to choose for herself. But I also want to discuss what we can do as the outsider, rather if you're the child that's listening to this, or if you're the step parent, or if you're the dad or whatever, some things that you can do to help in this. And unfortunately, I'll start with what you can do to help. And if you have anything else, you can add in there. But from my experience seeing this is we have got to get outside of our own needs and desires as the person that's walking beside someone with this, that it's not all about you. Like, yes, in your head, you want to be like, well, it's not all about them either. But in their world right then, it is. And everything is just spiraling down. And if you can, in a sense, detach your own self worth from the thing that they are experiencing personally, you're going to do a world of good for both of you, because you are not less of a stepmom because that you can't save them from this situation, that you can't get them out of it. Now, during the good weeks, during the good times is the time that you can help plan and prepare. I know something that I was able to do with you and even some friends that have gone through it, and little Ryleigh, not during period week, saying, do you think it's your period? Did you start your period? Are you fixing to start your period? I began to track it. I began to write it down on my calendar and say, like, okay, this was at the beginning of the month last month, and it was at the beginning of the month before that. We're seeing a pattern here. And so then on the good weeks, I might be able to say something like, have you noticed that it's happening like around the same time? Like, have you begun to track it? And just when you feel like this, don't even blame it necessarily on a period, but have you tracked like what is happening right beforehand, or what's going on around that time period? Kinda
Time period.
Time period, yes. And help them kind of come up. Or maybe like you watch a TikTok video and it's like, that sounds exactly like what they're going through. And then sending that like, hey, man, this was so relatable to me. Can you relate? Kind of thing. These are the tricks of the trade.
I see what you did. Okay, girl. Okay.
Yes. I'm letting out my secrets. But it's these things that we can do to help them come to that conclusion and understanding, and maybe make yourself available. Hey, I read somewhere that, or for me, like I noticed that like my mood swings are out of control right now, which if you don't have a period, you might not be able to say that like me. But, and I read that it said, do this, 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 and this. So this is something, this will lead into the story. Or do you have anything else to add on how to help?
No, I think.
Okay, if something comes up once we start to share the story, I'm going to share from my perspective. She can share the parts that's from her perspective. But I had been seeing my mentor, and she had been talking to me about menopause and different things that our body goes through, and how she was able to minimize the effects of all of the side effects that come with the change of life. And she's a 70-ish year old woman who's like speaking life into me from someone who's already walked through this season. And because I'm experiencing like some certain things, not just like mood swings, but other things that my body is doing, to be able to talk about these things with her. And she began to share like how she started to pray that God would show her, guide her, Holy Spirit would give her just some clarity on things that she could do to walk through this season with little to no effect from it. And God began to reveal some things to her about the things that she was putting in her body. And she did some research and some studies, and she had like a nursing background. And she began to share with me how much effects sugar has on your body during that time, and the reactions and stuff that it affects your mood so much. And so I just kind of like deposited that in me. And then fast forward a little bit, it's Easter Sunday. We're at church. Like I talked to Ryleigh probably a couple days, whatever, before that. And then, we volunteer at the church. I'm in children's the nursery, so it's hectic, busy, as you could you would imagine, plus grandbaby's first Easter. We have family coming over. There's a lot going on, and I remember just having this feeling stirring inside of me. And so I just want to make that known as well, as a mom and even as a stepmom. When you are in tuned in these relationships, the Holy Spirit is guiding you and directing you. Listen to those things. And so I was driving home from church. Randall and I were in different cars, and I had to drive through for some reason. Oh, I think we were going to do like nugget appetizers. So I drove through McDonald's just to get a bunch of nuggets to bring home until I think we were doing a crawfish boil till we could get the food ready or whatever. And I had this feeling like call Ryleigh, and I called her and she did not answer my phone call. And I'm like, well, she's probably busy. She's spending time with her family up there. No big deal. Come home, go about our Easter celebration. Meanwhile, are you willing to tell your side of the story since I set you up?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how we even got on the phone.
You called, well, it was actually the next, I think that night we talked to you maybe a little bit. I don't remember if it was the same night or if it was the next day.
Okay.
Because you ended up going to your sister's.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I was on my way to. I had gotten really sad because when I lived there, I was isolated so bad. And for if you know, like, if this is you or if you know somebody like this, like, I am an introverted extrovert. So quiet time is good for me, but too much of it is dangerous. And so, I was always really alone in I was missing you guys. I was missing my family. It was Easter. It's such a family oriented holiday. And um, I was just bummed. And my sister invited me to go and like celebrate with her family.
Which is on her sister's dad's side of the family. They share a mom.
Yeah.
So it's not Ryleigh's like blood family, but her sister's family.
Yeah. Yeah. So, she had spent the night with her parents previously, so she was already gone from the house. So, I woke up alone on Easter and it was just like really sad. And so I just got really detached, like trying not to feel anything. And then my sister like made me feel obligated that I had to come. She was like, "Look, I've already told my parents." She knew something was wrong with me already. And she was like, "Oh, I've already told my parents you're coming. Like they've got Easter basket for you, like you have to come." And so I felt obligated. So I was like, "Dang it." So I ended up driving there, and on the drive there I was just so numb. Like I just completely just done with everything. And
when I called you, it was while you were driving, or because I remember you told me later that you intentionally ignored my phone call, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was when I was driving there, then I ignored your phone call. So you called, I let it ring on my car. Sorry. But I knew I wasn't in a headspace to where I could just talk to anybody. And in my brain, my process back then was I don't want to hurt anybody or make them feel like they need to babysit me.
Like burden us because we were like happy celebrating or whatever.
Yeah. And so I knew she had called and everything, and I was just so in my head. And I was like, I'm going to drive off the road. And I went to go drive off the road, and my car, my lane assist, I had just gotten a new car, and my lane assist went off, and it just went beep, 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 beep. And it was like something from that, like, snapped me back into my body. Like, it was just like, I was like, "Wait, what the heck am I doing?" Like, I don't want to die, like, I don't want to. It was just that's a really hard thing to talk about, right? But,
Well, like you said, you had like actually typed out some stuff.
yeah, I
Right.
had wrote a note. Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry.
Yes. Well, that's why, I mean, and I didn't mean to like just put you out there on the spot if I didn't feel like you have overcome this to a point, but now I'm crying. I want us all to understand the severity of how deep and dark our mood swings and our menstrual cycle and our hormones and everything can take us so deep and dark to a place. And when we are not coming at a place of unity and reconciliation and relationship, how even the slightest thing could push somebody over the edge that they're already wanting to jump off of, versus you being in a place of, I am here for you. There is nothing that you can do. You're not a burden. Like, we need to share each other's burdens. We need to talk and have relationship and be able to just communicate in that way. And so I think this stuff is so important because people around the world, mothers and daughters specifically, are hurting and in pain. And it's because people won't talk and share the hard stuff. And so I do like give you like kudos for being willing, even though I may have just set you up for this unwillingly, to share the deepest things, because it could truly save the life of other people listening.
Woo. And I don't cry. I did not expect to share that moment today, but it's something I just try to forget about, you know? But man.
Well, and when you share those things, because you do talk about, I guess that's why I thought, like, you know, there's a little bit of an open door here, because you may not come out and say the words necessarily, but your way of coping with things like this is you write songs. You get those words out, those feelings out into the atmosphere by writing it down. And the thing is, you did experience that. I do believe that the prayers that we pray as a mother, as a father, as people, you know, that we love our children so deeply, I do believe that they do make an impact. I pray all the time, Psalms 91 over my kids, and that God's angels are sent, his angel armies are sent to surround them and protect them and keep them safe. In the scripture in Psalms 91, it talks about in their comings and their going, in the house and outside the house. And I'll ask God to surround their car and protect them and keep them safe, protect them from anybody trying to harm them or from them trying to harm themselves. Like, these are the things that I declare out loud over my children. And I believe that that is what takes place. Like, his angels are protecting our kids even from themselves. And so in this moment, like when I think about it, because she shared it with me the next day, I was able to get on the phone with her. I think we were FaceTiming the next day, and she's sharing this moment with me. And my heart is just broken, thinking that here I was in my house having this nice, joyous Easter moment without even the knowledge over here of what my kid is experiencing. That story could have played out so differently had we not even found her phone or to know what had happened. We just would have thought she got in a car accident, and then she would not be here today. Like, that just like breaks my heart to think of like all the possibilities that could have happened. And that was just a year ago. Just a year ago, we could be sitting here telling a completely different story on this podcast. And here we are. And I believe that God has brought Ryleigh and I together, seriously, like Queen Esther and her story, for such a time as this. And that God is going to use us together in our relationship to do mighty, incredible things for the kingdom of God and for people that need hope. Not just, oh, my stepdaughter will love me someday, but to come on here and to be able to share these such vulnerable moments. And so for Ryleigh, she wrote a musical number. Is there anything on that you want to share before you share your song?
I don't even know if I can make it through the song now.
You want me to sing it for you?
Your webcam is falling down.
Oh, it is like making a slow little dissension there. That's very weird. And we can't tell if it's still on our heads or not. So I will fix that. If you're on the live, I'll fix that. And if you're on the podcast, you'll never hear this because I'll edit it out.
Right. I think the thing that I want to add with all of that is, I know we're talking mood swings, but even more, um the spiritual warfare that's going on behind the scenes. Like, yeah, we can talk about mood swings and periods, and yeah, that does have a very real effect on us, but at the end of the day, like, I was also experiencing so much spiritual warfare, and that all the, like, mental health and things like that, stuff that my mom even struggles with. So, and my dad too, he struggles with that, and did when he was younger. So, I think, like, when you're in it or your kid is in it, like, and you don't know how to help, go to war for them, like, pray for them so hard. Just pray that, bind up anything that the enemy is trying to put in their head to literally get them off of,
Yeah.
like, um bind it up and cast it down to the pits of hell where it belongs, because it is so heavy and it's so deep, especially when the enemy is throwing those thoughts in your brain of, like, lack of self-worth, and making you feel like you're a burden and everything. Is That can take you so far down. So, that would be my other advice is, like, go to war.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual warfare over your child, and your child has such a purpose and such a calling in life that the enemy
Yeah.
is trying to make everything go wrong, and he's trying to disrupt that purpose for your kid's life. So, like you said, get out of your own way. It's not a personal thing. It's not anything that you're doing necessarily. You have to be in your kid's corner. You have to 100% be there for them, because they're lost, basically, and need you to be there to support them and help them, even if they don't say that, or even if they feel
Yeah.
like they can't say that. I felt like my tongue was tied 95% of the time when I was going through that. I felt like I couldn't, even when I would try to tell people how I felt, I couldn't even get the words out. It would come out all jumbly and not right. And so, just prayer and
Yeah. Well, and the Bible says that we are not fighting like a fight of flesh and blood, that we are fighting against evil spirits. And regardless how much you know about that, I mean, maybe get some books and ask your pastors. And if your pastors don't have knowledge on that, like, find somebody that does, because it is a true thing. Like, and the Bible says to put on our full armor of God. And the one piece of armor that we have is the sword of the Spirit. And the sword of the Spirit is God's word and truth, that we are able to be in offense. Every other piece of armor that we're putting on is kind of like in a defense kind of way to protect us from the things of the enemy coming at us. But the sword of the Spirit is our way to be on offense. And so taking those words, declaring them out loud over your kids, taking their names and personalizing it in the scriptures is so needed. When you get that icky feeling in your stomach, go and pray. Get in your quiet place. I mean, you can go and pray in your quiet place in your closet, but you can also be washing dishes and praying there as well. If you don't have a prayer language, like, I highly recommend you do some studies on having, you're speaking and like praying in the spirit, because it's utterances that we don't even understand. It's God's perfect will over their life, and there's things that our kids are experiencing that we don't even know to pray for, because we don't know that they're going through that. And when we are praying in the spirit, we are praying those things. The spirit inside of us is going to God on our behalf. That's how the Trinity works, and we are saved because of Jesus. Like, it all works together. And then the last part of that, if you want to get the guitar, do you even have the right guitar here? You need to go get it. The last part with that is, like, guys, we've got to be more compassionate towards our kids and our family. Like, we have to be more understanding. Yes, We are training our kids up in the way they should go. So when they're older, they will not depart from it. Like, we do have to discipline them. We have to do all of these things as their parents. But part of that is learning that they are learning and growing too. Like, so we get to come alongside them. I've been bombarded with stories lately of evil stepmoms and the things that they're doing to their stepkids. If that's you, stop it. Shame on you. Like, stop focusing on all the things that your stepkid is not doing right. And if you're a mother listening to this and you're so hard on your own biological kids, stop focusing on everything that they're not doing right. Take those things to the Lord and begin to pray over those things and become your child's biggest cheerleader, because they are fighting things that we do not understand. And that is magnified in a blended family, because just a regular child, teenager is fighting battles that we don't know. And then you put all the step family drama and issues and confusion that goes along with that, and it's magnified. So be their biggest encourager. So I'm going to fix the webcam just in case.
Okay.
Why did it shriek? Where are you? Okay, that's what your song's called.
That is the name of the song.
See that it looks right, but
If it doesn't,
I'm just gonna
fine.
trust that it's on you, since we cannot see it. And I'm gonna make sure we're still recording in the podcast. Yes, we are. Okay.
Lost my feeling. I don't care what happens anymore. Thought that I knew better than to ever let myself get this down. Muffled sounds. Everything I hear sounds like it's underwater. They are right in front of me, but I don't hear anything. Where are you? Where are you? I can't feel you. Where are you? I need you to pick me off the ground. Thoughts are heavy, like the weight of this whole world is up against me. I don't think that I have ever experienced anything so scary. Where are you? Where are you? I can't feel you. Where are you? I need you to pick me up again. I'm sinking, I'm reaching, I'm fading, I'm begging, I'm calling, I'm holding on to you. So where are you? I'm here. I never left your side. I heard you crying. I gathered up an army. We've been fighting. You don't have to worry, 'cause I casted out the darkness. I heard the prayers from everyone who loves you. They raise their hands up. So much power in their faith as they helped to fight off your demons. Now those chains no longer have hold over you. You're set free. I give you peace. Lift your head. The battle's over. You are safe in my arms.
That song gets me so I've got away from the mic. That song gets me every time because I know the story that goes complete. Now you know the story that goes behind it. And this podcast is going to be a little bit longer than normal. We try to keep them around 30 minutes. This one's almost an hour, and it's going to be a little more than an hour because I want to share this part of the story because I want you to understand how powerful our God is. Ryleigh, she shared the story with me during the day, and my heart was just broken for her. And we prayed together that day over the phone. I tried to figure out like what was the best way to let Randall know because I mean this is his baby girl, so it's like how do I express that this took place in a way that I wanted him to understand the seriousness of it because I do think we live in a culture where we went from not talking about it at all to a point to where maybe it gets talked about to a point where parents disregard a lot of these things. And I wanted him to really understand where she was that day, like how deep it was. This wasn't just how the kids throw out. I hate it when they say that, like, I just want to die or, FML, like they, I just don't want to be here anymore. They just throw out these terminologies. And I would get onto the kids all the time because they're like, I don't actually mean it. And I'm like, it's not a joke. Like do not say those things. Our words are powerful. And so I ended up telling him, and he immediately, he wants to get on the phone with her and we talk about it. And then the next day, her and I were speaking again, or I don't think it was that same day. I think it was the next day. I get online because at this point in Ryleigh's story, she had some things that happened in her faith walk with a person that was supposed to be a good person and was not. And because of the situation and this dating experience that she had, like it had completely shut her off from being able to call out to God in the way that we all need to have our Father that we can call out to when we need help. She had stopped writing music. She had stopped singing songs. She had stopped listening to worship, and she's had such a calling on her life since an early day of her going into worship and writing worship music and just the calling that God has on her life. And this experience with this guy took her from that. And then compounding some things, just like church issues and stuff like that. So at this point in her story, she was no longer just diving into worship, which is so healing for her music, so healing for her. And I thought, okay, the one person I know that she'll listen to is Lauren Daigle, because in a conversation just like days prior, she had talked to me about Lauren Daigle. And I thought, okay, if I could just find a concert or something near her, I would pay for the ticket for her to go see her. Guys, this is like, okay, so that happened on Sunday for Easter. We had the conversation the next day on Monday. Now here we are on Tuesday. I Google Lauren Daigle concerts, Alabama. Lauren Daigle was going to be in her town of Tuscaloosa that Thursday. 2 days later, Lauren Daigle is coming to this small town. I consider it a small town of all the states, of all the places that she could be. She's going to be in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And so I get on, I look and I call her. I'm like, there is a concert. Would you go for it? I feel like this is somewhere you need to be. And I pay the money that we didn't have at the time. I pay the money for her to go to this concert. She says, yes, I'll go. And she goes to the concert. She has a God encounter, right? I mean, you want me to just keep talking? If you want to interject at any point, you can, but I don't want to like force words into your mouth either.
Well, I mean, I went to the concert by myself, and that's like always weird, right? So I was like surrounded by this group of people when I was there, and it was like smushed. Like I was smushed in between like two other ladies. And when I'm like at a concert, I want to be able to move around.
We need arm space for our worship.
Yeah, and like claustrophobia, right? So I was like, oh my God. Well, there was this like guy sitting in front of me, and he had the whole entire road to himself, and something just kept like pushing me. Like, I mean, after that whole experience, I'm like, I was anti guys, everything. Like, so the fact that God put like this male figure in the situation was baffling to me, but something just kept telling me, like, ask him, like, if those seats are open next to him, like, that way I could jump up there and, like, have my space. I mean, it was so weird. Like, it was him in the center of this completely empty row. And, so
And this is an outdoor like amphitheater, just to give
yeah.
you a visual because I like to visualize things.
Yeah. And so I finally tapped him on the shoulder and I was like, "Hey, are these seats open?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, like I invited some friends, but they ended up weren't able to come." And I was like, "Okay, well if like nobody else shows up, is it okay if I like hop up there with you and like just sit there and, enjoy the concert, whatever?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's fine." So then he turns, back towards the stage, and then afterwards he turns back to me and he was like, "You can hop up here now if you want." And I was like, "Okay." So I like hopped up there and we talked for a little bit about Lauren Daigle and everything, and then the concert started, and I was just able to like stand up and like be free and move my arms and whatever. And it I wasn't alone, like I had someone there like to enjoy the concert with as well. Um, and then towards like the end of it, she was like wrapping up and she was singing, I think it was Everything. And that song gets me every time. So if you haven't heard it, you definitely need to listen to it. And it was like a gloomy day that day already. He actually left. He left to like go to the restroom. And so I was able to experience that part by myself, which is exactly what I needed. Um, and it started raining like at the climax of the song, like it started pouring down, and she had just shared a story about how rain was like cleansing and everything like that. And so I just literally felt God cleansing me of all of this stuff I had experienced days prior. Like he was just ridding me of all of that and basically just saying like, I've been here this whole entire time, just like kind of how my poem was in the song. Um, and it just completely wrecked me, and I remember feeling like so free and so light afterwards. And the guy never came back, so I'm pretty convinced maybe he was an angel. But
And his name was Keanu, right? Like, didn't we
yeah,
look that up and it had like some sort of representation
Yeah,
that
it was
definitely
like-
could have fit. So.
yeah, like a breath of wind or something.
Yeah,
fresh-
like something
yeah,
crazy like that in
super
like
weird.
Hawaiian or something.
Yeah, so it's just super strange. And so I was like, afterwards I came home and I was just completely like on fire. Like any kind of concert like that, but especially the fact that what had happened those days before, and then seeing Lauren Daigle, and I that was the only person I could listen to. All the worship songs were tainted for me because the guy I was with was a worship pastor. And so it I just had walls. I listened to Lauren Daigle and I listened to gospel. That was the only thing I could listen to. And so afterwards I started writing in my journal because that's the only way that I can cope with things like that. And started seeking my healing and praying to God and writing these songs. And this song came from that. It was me asking God, like, where have you been? Like I genuinely can't feel you. I don't know where you are. I can't see you. I just need you, and I knew I just needed him. And so that was my like arms stretched wide, open wide song to him.
Yeah, and she was starting to write music, so it wasn't that she had completely put music away. She had like even made a little studio in her house and stuff, but the music she was writing was for the world. Like the music she was writing was like, and they're cute and catchy songs and stuff like that, and still talented in the things that she's was writing, but they weren't from her heart. They weren't her life stories. They weren't God breathed, messages to her. And then ever since then, she has been writing these songs that it's just like so relatable, wrecks your world when you're listening to them, and just emotional. Like so many people that listen to her album, because now she has had her album come out called Beautiful Collide. And so many of the songs are just like that one on there, where it's the hardship, it's the pain that you experience in life, but then there's the hope and there's the goodness that God comes in and he restores or makes things better. And so if you haven't listened to the whole album, I highly recommend, not just mom plug over here, but just letting you know, like, if you need some music that just fills your soul and gives you hope and peace, because this world is full of sad playlist or raunchy or whatever, but just something just so genuine about her songs. So I want to leave you with that, but I do want to give you one other thing in this over an hour podcast that you're listening to, if you've stuck with us this long, which I'm sure you have because it's a really good story.
Oh, okay.
That not only in the spiritual realm was there fighting with us declaring things, us taking action, us getting her the concert tickets, and her taking the action and the step to go and do those things. There's also some choices that she had made since that day moving forward when I shared with her, because my mentor shared with me about the whole sugar thing, and I shared it with her, and it began to just like kind of like settle in her mind a little bit. And I think maybe even I shared with you some TikToks that I saw that maybe had some effects of those, talking about those along those same lines. And so she started to do her own research and began to cut sugar out of her diet. And I'm not telling you this because I'm like all like crunchy mom, like don't give your kids sugar. I don't think that you could probably convince your 13-year-old that she needs to stop having sugar to make her mood swings better. This has to be a complete decision that you share this information, share this podcast with them, this video with them, and let them come up with the conclusion themselves, because I still eat sugar, but besides the unhealthy like pounds that it puts on, and I'm sure it messes with me in some ways, I did not experience the effects that she has, and I have not experienced the results that she has had. And so when I'm like, man, this cookie doesn't tempt you at all, like, not that I'm trying to like lure her into a cookie, but her willpower is so strong to say no, not only to desserts that have sugar in them, but to potatoes and breads and white rice and all these other things that have sugars in them as well. Pretty much anything that has been bleached, that's not naturally, like flour that wasn't white, is actually brown first, that they have bleached. That process and that refining process somehow has sugar in it, right?
Yeah.
And so she has just took those things out of her diet. And that was last May. So we're coming up on a year, and she's experienced a drastic change in your periods every month, right?
Yeah, like now until this past couple months, but cuz my diet wasn't the best these past couple months, but
It's hard during
anyways.
the holidays. Like, even if you're saying no to sweets, you're eating the unhealthy things that the people around you are eating as well.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I was eating like super clean. They had like a really great farmers market where I was at, in Tuscaloosa. And so, I shopped from there. I got all my produce there. I got my veggies there. I got everything that I needed there. And so I was eating super clean, non-processed things as well as no sugar. And I would get my period and I wouldn't even know it. Like it would just sneak up on
So
me.
like, oh, hey.
Yeah, exactly. But before then, it was a whole process. Like it was a dark cloud for 2 weeks. And then, I got my period and it was a dark cloud for a week, maybe after. And then I got fine again, so I mean, like we're saying, like this may not be for everybody, but for me in particular, those like stars aligning with
Yeah.
that really helped me. And now like eating clean, I've noticed, has just in general made a huge positive effect on my mental health, and to where I don't experience those things anymore.
Yeah, and I want, because again, you may not be able to convince your 13-year-old. Like I know with Devin and his allergies and stuff, trying to convince him like stop eating the avocados, they break your skin out. It's really hard to force somebody into something like that when they have control of what goes in their body. But I'm a pretty rare occasion to have hit menopause already. Like normal people my age are just now starting to go through those effects, and you're experiencing all the mood swings and everything. So regardless of what age you're listening to this, if you're the mom in this situation, give it a try. I mean, what do you have to lose? Like, when did you start to see the effects? Like within the first month, would you say, or did it
Oh,
take?
yeah, it was so immediate. It was so immediate. Like, as soon as all that stuff got out of my body, it was like, because I started eating clean after my, like, cycle, and then so I had that whole month to get my body right, and then by that next month, it was just, like, clear skies. So, yeah, it was pretty immediate.
So yeah, like take this for what it is. Do your own research if you would like as well. I don't think there's anybody that's really going to say no, sugar's really good for you.
Right.
Most people that have it or put it in their body, they know that it's not great for you, but it is so addicting that it's hard. And we live in a culture now where it's so included in almost
It's in
everything.
everything, yeah.
So it's hard, even random things that you wouldn't think like that has sugar in it. And she has done some good job of finding like some healthy alternatives to be able to still have sweet in her life, but without it being from refined sugar. So if you
Yeah.
have more questions on that, let us know, let her know,
Yeah.
and we'll be willing to answer those as best we can. But for now, I just want to end in prayer. Does that sound good?
Always a good time to pray.
Yes, always looking for a miracle, as
Always
the show
looking for a
says.
miracle.
And so I'm just going to pray over you and your situation. Father, I just thank you that whomever is listening to this today, that it is not by accident, Lord, that
Mhm.
you knew exactly what they needed for their family, Lord. And I just, I thank you for Ryleigh's vulnerability, and that you would never allow anybody to use this story and our family situation to bring harm to her or anyone in our family, Lord, but that you use
Mhm.
it to bring health and hope and wholeness to those that
Yes,
listen, Lord.
God.
That it's your Holy Spirit that's guiding and directing, Lord. If there are things that are going on within my friend that's listening right now's household, mood swings are affecting their relationship, Lord, I just ask that the Holy Spirit begin to nudge them in the right direction, that they can experience, begin to track those things, to pay attention to them, to see what it is, what is the root cause. And I thank you, Lord, that when we ask and we seek, you answer, you reveal those things. I ask that you give the person that is in charge, the woman, the mom, the wife in the household, that they're able to handle it with love and compassion, Lord, that
Yeah.
they look at their kid with the same filter that you see your child, Lord, and that they begin to be able to be their biggest coach and cheerleader, Lord, and that all the things that the child is doing wrong, or the deep and the darkness that they're in, that they're able to take those things and they're able to turn it over to you. That your word says to carry one another's burdens, Lord, so that they will come alongside them and carry that burden, but not as a heavy weight on their shoulders, but they will link with you. That Jesus says, come to me, all who are weary, link with
Yes,
me, that
God.
my burden is light, my yoke is easy. So Lord, when we connect with you, that we are releasing that burden over to you, not carrying it ourselves. So I just thank you that you are intervening in only the way that you can, Lord. If there are any men listening to this, the husbands, the dads, Lord, that you are showing them a different side, a different perspective, so that they can give compassion and kindness to the ladies in their life, Lord. I thank you for the doctors that you are bringing their way. I thank you for the TikToks and the Instagram reels and everything, the YouTube videos, as they listen to this, that you are feeding them with more truth. And as they
Mhm.
experience more truth and more understanding, Lord, they're digging into your word, that they are seeking you, and you are giving them guidance on what they need to do to be at their best selves, Lord. Lord, I thank you that your angels are on assignment, protecting their kids and their families and keeping them safe, Lord. from anyone trying to harm them and from themselves in their home and on their comings and goings. Lord, I thank you that you are giving them dreams with clarity involved in it, Lord, that you are speaking to them in the night, that you are protecting them from any terrors of night coming their way. And Lord, we are just so grateful that we could come to you with any of our needs, even of such a topic of periods, Lord. But periods did not catch you off guard, because periods entered into this world because of the sin that entered into this world with Adam and Eve. So this is something that you are right in the middle of, Lord. Give us clarity. And I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Whew. All right. I hope you go about your day feeling guarded, protected, safe, wiser, more compassionate, and go download Ryleigh's album. If you just need just some, you're like, oh no, they're done talking, or go listen to the last 2 episodes. And then we want to hear from you. Ryleigh's on Instagram and TikTok as Ryleigh Angelina.
Yeah, Ryleigh Angelina Music.
And then, we're on the social medias as Enjoying Your Blended Family. So find us on there, write us in the DMs. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, remember to enjoy your blended family. Bye, guys. And in Jesus'